The saw is the most underrated but arguably one of the most useful tools in your camping or survival kit. Today I'm going to share with you my top 5 saws that will cover all the bases in this department. Let's get to it.
If you're wondering why there's 6 fires burning behind me, watch the last video. So today we're going to check out my personal favorite saws. Now there are a couple old school traditional buck saws that I might start carrying at CanadianPreparedness.com, but I can tell you they're very expensive and they're really only built for homestead use. If you haven't watched my video, bow saws and buck saws versus silky saws, go check that out. The gist of it is this. Show me a bow saw worth carrying and I'll carry it. There's a few key reasons why saws like this are simply all around better for survivalists, campers. The first thing is they're quick to deploy. Most bow saws require you to fold them out and string them up and tie some wing nuts and all the rest. You don't have to do that with this. Number 2 is that they cut much faster and they only cut on the pull. So you get a chance to rest and it's much easier to pull than it is to push, especially if you're trying to cut a branch up in a tree. Gravity is going to do the work because the work is going to be done when you're pulling down. It's very hard to push up if you're trying to get a high branch with a bow saw. The next thing is the curvature of the blade. This curvature ensures that throughout the entire cut, you're making contact with the uncut wood. That's very key because if you have a straight blade, which is good if you're doing some like bushcraft carpentry and you need a straight cut, you need straight cut wood. There are situations where you need that, but in terms of just wood harvesting, nothing beats a curved blade. There's also much less of a learning curve. Bow saws require a bit more technique and safe handling. This is simply pull it back, let it do the work. The other thing is that bow saws and buck saws need sharpening regularly because they dull very quickly. These silky saws are not only rust proof because they're chrome plated, but there's also a very intensive heat treatment that they do. So these blades take a long time to actually start to dull. A blade like this is going to be very hard to sharpen in the field. Most silky saws are not sharpenable. I mean, you can try to sharpen it, but the steel is just so hard that it's not even really going to be worth your while.
Now just to clarify, Silky's larger saws like the Katana Boy 650 and the Katana Boy 1000, you can actually sharpen these saws. They do sell special files for them. You can get them at CanadianPreparedness.com.
Other things you can't do with a buck saw well that you can do with this easily is a horizontal cut. So if you have to fall a tree, it's very awkward to do it with a buck saw. It's just you watch people do it and it just looks awkward. And those things are big, they're clunky. If there's brush in the way of the branch that you're trying to cut, it's gonna be much easier snagged up on one of those. Whereas this, very slim, streamlined, you can get into all the parts of the tree that you need to without much impediment. Now in terms of axes to harvest firewood, it's really silly this day and age. It just takes so long and so much energy. It's not as safe. I mean, you just use a saw, man. Like there's guys who like to do it because it's more traditional, and I guess, there's definitely an art form to cutting with an axe, don't get me wrong. But in terms of actual efficiency and getting stuff done in the field, nothing beats a good saw.
Now I just want to clarify here that an axe is an essential accessory tool. They're a lot more durable than a saw and they're going to last a long time. They're great for splitting wood and it's just a great all-around aggressive cutting tool. The axe has many roles to play in camp life. Harvesting and processing large logs is not one of them.
Now there is a purpose for an axe, or preferably a hatchet like this with a nice long surface cutting area, and that's to hack at those small branches, which it doesn't make sense to individually saw. I'm really liking the pistol grip saws because they're just easier to use. If you're a person who, I don't know, you got carpal tunnel or you got any sort of muscular tendonitis issues, the pistol grip is going to be a lot easier for you to use. It requires less muscle contraction. When you're using a long saw, you really have to tense up a lot with your forearms, so it requires a lot more forearm strength to hold the saw. This, simply wrap your fingers around it and pull. So this is the Silky Zubat. One of the things I like about it, I'm guilty of a bit of vanity here, but I really like the sheath. The black sheath has a detachable clip on it So, you know, you could wear this on your belt, you could detach it if you don't want it. You don't have to take your whole belt off, and fits right in there nice and snug. It has leg loops on it, so if you wanted to, you could. A lot of the arborists, what they'll do is they'll attach it to their legs, so when they're up in the tree, it's not kind of getting in the way of their range of motion, so they can just pull that sucker out, get to work. Most Silky Saws are available in different types of teeth configurations. So the finer teeth are for the harder woods, the medium teeth are for the medium-sized woods, and the bigger teeth are for the green wood or the really soft woods. The Zubat is just built really well. This is one of the best-selling Silky Saws there is, for good reason. Very reliable. Up next is this little guy. This is the Silky Pocketboy. Very, very durable and nice, comfortable rubber grip on it. Very small. This is something you would put in like a miniature survival kit. It's not their lightest weight saw, and it's actually a little bit more expensive than the F180. And that's because it's just built a bit more sturdy. Like you'll see, it's got a lot more heft to it. So, but it's a nice small little saw, really tough. And because the blade is so short, even though, you know, it's not the thickest blade, you don't have to worry about snappage. This next saw addresses the long saw grip problem. So typically with a straight saw like this is the Katana Boy, it requires a lot of forearm strength. The biggest problem with folding saws is that most of them don't have any curvature, so there's no pistol grip aspect. So there's no nice curve that allows you to get that nice opposing force, which would minimize the amount of strain on your wrist and your forearms. So this one addresses that. I prefer this saw over the Big Boy 2000, even though the wood you can cut maybe not as big. In terms of the comfort of use, it's much more comfortable, has a nice rubberized grip, and that curvature is going to minimize strain and overuse. So this is probably one of my favorite saws. It's very durable. It's essentially a hybrid between your folding saw and your fixed blade saws. This design also is that you can carry extra blades and easily replace them in the field. Some saws, like the Big Boy series, have different types of blades. So if you're in a forest that has hardwoods and softwoods, you can easily switch out a hardwood blade with a softwood blade. Up next is the good old Katana Boy 650. After using the Katana Boy 1000, this seems small. This used to be an overkill, oversized saw. Not anymore. Thanks to me and you guys and all the survival and YouTube community, we've made this normal here in North America anyways. It's starting to get normal in Europe as well. But the Silky Katana Boy, man, it's a great saw. You know, it can't be beat in terms of your ability to process large amounts of wood with minimal energy expenditure. And that's the key factor here, is that especially if you're in a survival situation. I mean, you'd be lucky if you had this in a survival situation. It wouldn't even really be a survival situation, because by the time the search and rescue caught up with you, you'd have a log cabin built. But I tell you, I mean, it makes processing wood so easy. And in winter time, that is absolutely crucial. You don't want to be spending, you know, the majority of your day collecting firewood. You want to be out there fishing, doing some hunting, doing some construction around the campsite. I tell you, Katana Boy 650 is certainly worth the price. These retail for about $209.99, and it is absolutely razor sharp. Silky is a company that's been around for 100 years. They take a lot of pride in what they do. I've met the owner. He came actually to my hometown to visit me, and it was a blast. Great guy, really believes in what he does. Now, the King Kong of saws. This saw is actually starting to wear on me. If they suddenly decided to up the ante a little bit more, I would be ready now. Before I wasn't ready. Before I was like, okay, this is probably way too overkill. But let me tell you something. After you use this and you go to the Katana Boy 650, you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of slow. And not even so much that it's slow. The Katana Boy 650, it's a bit easier to handle, so you can cut wood almost just as fast, but it requires a lot more energy. This, one stroke, it's like you're halfway through the log already. Even though that one stroke, because you know, you got to be precise in your placement, and it might be pulling and moving the log around a bit. I tell you, this thing is just an absolute savage, and it's such a thick blade. This thing ain't never gonna break. I guarantee you this thing ain't never gonna break. If you break this, either it's a 1 in a million factory defect, or you got problems, man. Because this thing is thick. Like this one, of all the saws they make, this is the one saw which you may have issues at the junction, but like I've said, I've never seen that before. This thing is just an absolute tank. You really got to feel it in your hand to understand how much of a monster this is. I mean, right when it touches wood, it's like, you know, when you get a Jeep or you get an off-road vehicle, it's not until you go off-road that the car kind of knows where it is. It's just like that with this saw. You put this on wood and right away, it's like, it's instinct. What it's made to do kicks in, and it just starts tearing up the wood before you even start pulling the thing back. So it is an absolute monster. And the teeth are big enough that it's more practical for you to be able to sharpen something like this. But man, this thing is just, it's a work of art. I really should be doing more videos showing me use this, because it is an absolute monster. Now there is the Silky Katana Boy 500, which I didn't really demonstrate much in this video. In terms of straight folders, that's the smallest I would go. I wouldn't go with the big boy anymore. I would go with the Katana Boy 500. I actually got one here to show you. Some people like the Katana Boy 500 because it's black, it's tactical. You can still cut really big logs. This was their first monster saw that they ever came out with. And this is how I found Silky, because I was looking on the internet one day, I'm like, man, I want the biggest saw money can buy. And the Katana Boy 500 at one point in time was that saw. That was then, this is now, okay? I'll post a screenshot so you can get a good size comparison of all these saws. But this is the big boy. Bushcraft community, go back 10 years, people were talking about how this was a monster size saw, okay? Then myself and others came on the scene with this. This is a Katana Boy 500. People were like, that's way too much. That's way overkill, man. What are you trying to do? Then I came on the scene 5 years ago. I showed off this bad boy. People are gonna be thinking I got some kind of inferiority complex here. So, you know, all was well in the world. Okay, this was considered, you know, out of most people's reach, price-wise, and it was scoffed at by a lot of traditionalists because they thought, why would you ever need something like that? So, to add insult to injury, I decided, you know what? Let's up the ante a little bit more. You can see everything in America, and by America I mean North America, keeps getting bigger and badder. You know, at some point, we're gonna have to start downsizing. But I think this is as big as Silky is ever gonna go. Who knows? Maybe they'll, I think there was talk, I heard rumors, but it's probably just rumors, because I really don't think it's practical for them to go much bigger than this. But what they could do, if they wanted to, is put another handle on this. Okay, so here, this is one recommendation, going a little off topic. This is one recommendation I would have for this saw. To have a grip right here, so that when you're pulling it back, so you can grab it, maybe, you know, maybe you could even put just the thing that you would screw in to the back there, so it sticks up perpendicular like that, and you could just pull it, because that would give it a nice pistol grip aspect. And man, you would be deforesting everywhere. Whatever remains of the forests in Canada after next year's forest fire season, you'll be coming in there to scoop it up. Anyways, those are my favorite saws, the saws that I personally use. I sell all kinds of saws, about 20 different types of saws, and these are the ones that I personally rely on and I take into the woods when I'm coming on my, you know, day trips like this, or when I got projects to do, or if I'm just going camping in the backcountry. Those are the 5 saws. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps. Have a